Hello everyone, it's Mark and welcome back. In this video, I'm going to talk to you about the two types of Baker Act. And you're like, two types of Baker Act? How can there be two different types of Baker Act? Well, there is, and here they are. The first type of Baker Act is a voluntary Baker Act, and the second one is an involuntary Baker Act. Well, Mark, why would anybody agree to be Baker Acted? Well, here's the deal. If you agreed to it, you almost certainly didn't know that that's what you were doing. In other words, you weren't told what you were doing and you weren't told of the consequences. And let me explain how that can happen. So the police get called to the scene of an incident. Okay, maybe there's an allegation that you were trying to harm yourself, and they say to you, listen, would you agree to come with us? Okay, and here's the thing. If you don't agree to go, they're taking you anyway. Okay, so you're going to go, whether you like it or not. And they say, well, you agree to go. So you agree to go. Okay, now there's an argument there that that was a voluntary agreement to be Baker Acted, okay? But you get to the hospital, and then the hospital says, oh, would you sign this paperwork? Okay, and it might say voluntary admission agreement, it might say consent to treatment, things of that nature. You go and sign it, and once that happens, you have been Baker Acted, okay? And I get people calling me all the time saying, no, I wasn't taken involuntarily, I wasn't taking involuntarily, I was taking, I was there voluntarily, I agreed to be there. You have been Baker Acted. And how do I know that? Because if you try to walk out, you're going to have two very large security guards escort you to the ground, slam your face into the concrete. They're going to hog tie you and stick the biggest needle you've ever seen in your backside to sedate you. Okay? You have been Baker Acted even if you're there on a voluntary basis. And here's the rub with that. If you have been voluntarily Baker Acted, you can be held indefinitely without a court order, without seeing a judge, without access to counsel. None of that, okay? Because nobody knows you're there. There's no oversight here, okay? You have fallen into a black hole and you can be stuck there, okay? Well, what do you do if you're voluntary? Well, that's where we come in, okay? The goal here is to revoke your consent and get you out. Now, what happens when we revoke your consent? Which, by the way, you can do, but I wouldn't advise it, okay? If you revoke your consent, the facility has 48 hours to do one of two things. Number one, they let you go. Number two, they file a petition for involuntary placement with the court. Now, if they do that, within 5 days, you're going to be seeing a judge. Okay, there'll be a prosecutor there, either a private counsel or a public defender and a judge, and they'll decide at that point how much longer you're going to be stuck there, potentially up to the next 6 months. Okay, but even if the facility doesn't intend to keep you, just by filing the paperwork, right, the petition for placement, they know they get those extra 4 or 5 days, right, just having you sit there. So if you've got health insurance, they're billing the insurance for the time you're there, the groups you're supposed to be attending, all the pills and medication they're giving you, all of that. Okay, so that's the Voluntary Baker Act. Okay, what about if you're involuntary? In other words, you got taken against your will. Well, in that case, you can be legally held for up to 72 hours. Okay, and when the clock for that 72 hours began to tick, again, that's probably a topic for a different video, but needless to say, it's the facility who gets to decide that. So if you've been at a hospital before you got to the Baker Act facility, in almost certainly that time, whether it's a day, 2 days, 3 days, isn't going to count. So don't think that just because you went there on a Monday and you didn't get transferred till Thursday that you're getting out on Thursday. It's not happening, okay? And I know that because I've seen it hundreds of times, okay? The Baker Act facility is going to start that clock ticking all over again, okay? And I'm not saying it's right, and I'm not saying it's legal. I'm just telling you that's the way it works. That's the real world when it comes to the Baker Act. So if you have been involuntarily detained, okay, you can be held legally, again, that I say legally tongue-in-cheek because nobody's there to make sure they're doing it right, but let's say they do, for sake of this video. After 72 hours, one of three things have to happen. Number one, you're released. Number two, you agree to be there on a voluntary admission basis. Or number three, they file that petition for involuntary placement, the one that gives them an extra 4 or 5 days to detain you. Okay, but they can get you to agree to consent to stay there. Now, why you would do that, I don't know. But most of the time what's happening is that the facility is coercing the person to sign a voluntary admission agreement. And as I previously stated, once you're there voluntarily, you can be held indefinitely without a court order, without seeing a judge, without access to counsel. None of that. Okay, so they love voluntary admission, okay, because they don't have to have a judge reviewing what they've just done. So, and it may be they just, flat out lie to you. Hey, Mark, if you don't sign this voluntary admission agreement, we're going to go get a court order and you're never going to get out of here. Okay, they're going to lie to you. Okay, and I know that sounds crazy, but these facilities will lie to you. Okay, that's the bottom line here. So, two types of Baker Act: voluntary, involuntary. Okay, and whether you're voluntary or involuntary, if you want to get out, again, I mean, it's only two ways you get out of a Baker Act facility. They either let you go or you got to fight to get out. Now, in our experience, the clients that get the best results are the ones that fight to get out. Is it possible if you wait that you'll be released? It's possible. It happens. It actually happened to my family member. Thank goodness. Okay, I didn't have to run to court. But at this point we've handled hundreds of these things, and I've spoken to thousands of families, and those are the clients, that fought to get out. Okay, so I hope that explains things. Voluntary versus involuntary, two Baker Acts, two different types of Baker Act, and I appreciate you taking time to tune in, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.